All right, there's been a lot of weird cars to come out in the past couple weeks, months, years, decades, but this one might be the weirdest one of them all, and I don't think it's particularly close. This thing here, this has come out for 2024, and it's called the Tesla Cybertruck. I've been driving it, living with it for almost 1,000 miles for a couple of weeks now, so you don't have to. God, I will say this vehicle is characterized by these really big highs and lows, really big, sweeping, exciting, really interesting things about it, and then lows on the other side that are like really disappointing about it, that you only really find by actually living with it, which I have been. So that's what this video is. I'm just gonna detail everything, break it down, try not to get hurt by them. They tend to interrupt these videos, but that's okay. This is the Cybertruck. Now it feels like there's only one place to start with the truck, which is how it looks, right? This thing, I have a lot more to say about it and maybe a main channel full review, but I think it's kind of iconic, meaning you either love this or you hate it. And in person, it looks even more cyberpunk, like low poly render than maybe anything on video quite shows. And I'll dig more into the materials and the build quality and panel gaps in just a second, but there's something you should know about living with the Cybertruck, which is that the truck itself is a bit of a celebrity. At least at this moment, especially if you're in a place where there aren't really any others yet, you cannot drive this without getting attention at all. It's the most attention-getting vehicle by a long, long way that I've ever gotten. You drive this thing, people walking past turn around, people driving by literally accelerate to try to get a better video out their side window of you driving by. It's actually kind of dangerous. Like, the way that people behave on the road when they see a Cybertruck and want to go get a video of it is crazy. That's all by itself. This truck also has Sentry mode. You probably already know about Teslas, where you walk up to the truck and it knows and it turns on the recording from the cameras. This truck has hundreds of video clips of people walking up to it and looking inside and just generally interrupting it and draining the battery during the day. It's that popular. So I feel like it's polarizing enough that people either love it or hate it. In real life, I kind of like it. It's really hard to explain why. I think it looks sick in person. It's also dirty. Don't get me started. The roads in New Jersey suck. They're flying away. It's okay. But generally, yeah, this is it's a very unique looking truck. But the thing about these looks is I think it actually distracts people from a lot of really interesting technical innovation that goes on under the hood. I mean, everyone wants to talk about the looks, understandably, but the 800-volt architecture, this crazy suspension with a ton of travel, like there's more happening with this truck that I'll get into in a second. But let's just start with the basics. What is it, right? There's basically two Cybertruck specs you can get right now, two different versions. The dual motor or the triple motor, the Cyber Beast. So this is the Foundation Edition Cybertruck, Foundation Series, which means it's one of the first ones. It's a low VIN number, but this is the dual motor version. The triple motor version is basically the exact same truck, but faster because it has an extra motor in the back and it has Alcantara in the dash. That's basically the only difference. But let's get into the technical stuff. First of all, they ship to owners without that hubcap. Remember the aero cap that we see in all those early Cybertrucks, especially when they show all that promo material? That's not on this truck. So you do have just the open wheel. When you get your Cybertruck, they're redesigning the aero cover that you'll eventually allegedly get, which means this. You see the open wheel, you see the brakes, but you also just have like no hubcaps and no nut covers, and that's the only place I've seen rust on this truck. A little bit worrying, but that's the way it is right now. You can get third-party covers if you want, but that's the place I see rust on this truck. And then the thing about a low VIN Tesla is you will be dealing with low VIN production quality stuff. Only reason I say that is because I'm the guy who doesn't really care about panel gaps too much, and I still really don't pay too much attention to it. But this panel gap is actually worth mentioning. It's the worst I've ever seen in a production vehicle. I'll just show it to you. This is the driver's side door. There's no door handles, as you can tell. The way to get into the truck is that little handle, and it pushes it out, and then you pull the truck out the rest of the way. That's why there's fingerprints all over this truck. But I don't know. I think there's going to be something wrong with this door because it literally looks like it's open. Like that's pretty bad. I've never seen a gap quite that bad. That's the way it should look. That's the way it looks. It's probably one of those things where I'll have to bring it into Tesla. They'll tighten some things up and it'll look fine, but that's the stuff you will probably have to deal with if you get a low-VIN Cybertruck. But then, of course, you know, you're looking at the materials, you're looking at these angles, all the sharpness up here. We've covered I've talked about this before. This is not a surprise, but you have this big LED light bar on the front, which is pretty iconic when it pulls up behind you, and then all of the actual headlights are down here. And so that's where all the actual bright light comes from. You also got your front-facing camera on a Tesla for the first time with a washer. Sick. And then this huge sloping windshield. Some might even call it the largest sloping windshield on any vehicle ever, which brings us to the windshield wiper. This is the largest windshield wiper on any production car, and you've seen people do this before, but it's just massive. It's just big blade. It's pretty expensive to replace, but it seems to work fine. The one weird thing about it is it doesn't actually go all the way down to the bottom of the glass on the windshield. This actually pivots over to a couple inches above the bottom. So when it's wiping, there's just a bunch of rain and water at the bottom that still continues to roll up the windshield even while you've cleared the windshield. It's kind of a weird California quirk where they design cars that aren't as good in rain as you would expect. Either way, I'll just finish my way around the outside of the truck. It's a pretty big truck, as you already know. It's full size, especially from like this rear 3/4 angle. It just has these big shoulders. It kind of looks like a dump truck in a way. Maybe that's not the best way to describe it, but that's what it reminds me of. Either way, big glass sunroof, and then you've got this huge truck bed, which has the lockable tonneau cover, which they call a vault. And when that comes up, it closes that rear window and comes all the way back to the front. Then you can open the tailgate. So there's lights in the tailgate. There's even hidden storage right here. There's no room for a spare, so this is a truck where if you want to carry a spare, that's going to take up room in the actual truck. But, you know, you can have your charging equipment down here, maybe have some groceries down here. A little sub-trunk space never hurt anybody. And I definitely want to mention you have these outlets over here. So you have the two 120s, but you also have a 240 volt, which you can literally use to charge other vehicles. You can charge another Tesla, you can charge a Rivian, whatever, just with the mobile connector by plugging it in here and plugging it into the other vehicle, which is pretty sweet. But this is also a good time to talk about the battery of the Cybertruck. It's a big battery physically, but it's not the best range I've ever seen. So this dual motor Cybertruck is gonna get on a full 100% charge up to like 320 miles indicated. You can actually drive more like 290. And the triple motor, which I've been recently living with, maxes out at 300 indicated, which is actually more like 265, 275. And it's also not the fastest charging Tesla we've seen either. You go to a regular Tesla supercharger and you don't max out at quite the same charge curve speeds for a long time as like a Model 3 or a Model S would. So it's really not the ideal long-term road tripper. That said, there are several accessories that are supposed to be also coming to the Cybertruck. And this is one of those low points of the Cybertruck, which is it's so early that they don't exist yet and I don't know when they will. But one of them is the extended battery that goes on the back of this thing that brings it up to allegedly 500 miles. Huge, several thousand pounds, plugs into the truck, takes up space in the truck bed. I don't know if or when that's coming, but it exists on their website. The other is the light bar on the top. It's also, who knows when it's coming, there's no info about it. I saw one at Tesla's factory, but no indication of when that's going to come, even though I ordered one and I have a truck that doesn't have it. So, the last thing that's not shipping with the Cybertruck yet is Autopilot. So it has all these sensors, it has all these cameras all the way around the truck, but the Autopilot or full self-driving that you're used to in other Model S and Model 3 and Model Y and Model X doesn't work. All that this has is traffic-aware cruise control. So you still steer, but it will do following the car in front of you and keeping its distance, variable speed. That's it. You paid for Autopilot, you don't get it. You paid for that battery, doesn't exist yet. You paid for the light on top, it's not there. But let me show you what is here because I have noticed some new stuff. And by the way, I said this in the impressions video. I said that this would happen. And here are all your fingerprints from getting into the Cybertruck. But let's look at the interior real quick. This is your steering wheel. So the Cybertruck is in every... That sounds bad. The Cybertruck is, in every possible way, a Tesla on the inside. It's very, very minimal. And to me, maybe even too minimal, just because this is supposed to feel a little bit more of a special vehicle. Here you go. First of all, this is the key. It's just the normal key fob. But this is the first Tesla ever with a power opening front trunk. It would be nice to have a button to open it, or just kind of like a cool cyber fob. But cost. Gotta save cost. Same thing here. It's everything on one screen. And to give them credit, it's an awesome screen. It's a huge display. I think it's 15 inches diagonally. It's got all this compute. It's really smooth. Everything you ask it to do, it usually does it pretty dang smoothly. So even though there is no CarPlay, there is no Android Auto, this is the best computer I've ever used in a car. All the UI, pretty intuitive. I think some people find this menu a little bit intimidating because there's a lot visually going on here, but once you get used to it, you kind of know by muscle memory where to get to things. I just wish there was climate control buttons like I always do in a car. You have to go into the menus here and then sort of move this stuff around. This is all very Tesla, right? But you've got this storage space in the middle. You've got 2 wireless chargers that work great, 2 cup holders, and then storage in the center here. And that actually goes down even further. And then some pretty comfortable seats, I'd say. They're heated and ventilated. But I think what you really care about from the driver's seat is the steering. So one of the highs of the Cybertruck is it has this incredible steering, which is enabled by basically 3 main things. A combination of the things. 1, steer-by-wire. 2, a variable steering ratio. And 3, rear wheel steering. Okay, so all of these things put together make this the most nimble feeling truck, especially at low speeds, I think ever made. Okay, so this is the steering wheel or squircle you're dealing with. It's kind of small, but it does have your blinker buttons that are physical buttons that actually click instead of just haptics. You've got your headlights there, a real horn, thankfully, and your autopilot button, which again just does adaptive cruise control, and your giant windshield wiper right there, and voice controls. Okay, so we know what this looks like. First thing that's crazy about this is full lock. It's not this like hand over hand thing to get the truck to fully steer. That is turning all the way right, and that is turning all the way left. So this is the most one-handable driving vehicle probably ever of this size. And then the variable steering ratio, all that really means is at low speeds, it's turning the wheel. Steer-by-wire is this crazy thing. It sounds insane because the wheel is not physically connected to the actual wheels and tires. It's all just a computer and might as well be a video game controller. But what it's actually doing on top of all that is it's changing the amount that it's steering based on how fast you're going. So at low speeds, really, really quick and nimble, and at high speeds, it softens up a little bit and it's not quite so bad. You get used to it very quickly. And then, like I said, the last component is the rear wheels turn more than any other vehicle, again, that I've ever tried, 10 degrees right now in either direction. And so when you're turning around quickly in a small parking lot, it's incredibly impressive how quickly you can get into parking spots and turn in and out of things. And at highway speeds, it actually changes the rear wheel direction in the same way as the front wheels. So you're kind of gliding from lane to lane. Like I said, it all gets put together into this really nice package of very nimble, impressive handling. It's not a sports car by any means, but it's really nimble for a full-size truck. It's actually gotten to the point where I got so used to it like this that I recently drove an F-150 Lightning, and I felt like I was doing a whole bunch of extra movement to get the truck to do the same amount of turning. Even though the F-150 Lightning is decently nimble, it's like, whoa, all this extra movement. This makes it feel like I should just be able to do this with every truck. That's full lock. That's crazy. But okay, let me just hit you with a couple other build quality things from this front seat before we get to the back. First of all, this rear view mirror, maybe the dinkiest rear view mirror you'll ever see in a car this size. It's also borderline useless because you don't actually see out the back of the truck when the tonneau cover is closed. Instead, you have to deal with a screen rear view mirror here. This is classic Tesla. Tesla wants to save money. We all know that this should have been a screen to have your rear view mirror show up here from the camera feed, but instead they put the camera feed on the screen because another screen means more cost, and they don't want more cost. It's annoying, but you have to remap your brain to check there instead of there to look behind you. Pretty classic Tesla. Either way, You also have this gigantic, expansive windshield. And the weird angle thing kind of plays tricks on you because you feel like you can't see over the hood. But that corner basically is the hood, so you have a little visibility there. And then basically it's a cliff right there where it drops off. So it's just huge window and then cliff. And then at the top of this cliff here is your sunshades, which are pretty big, but they're these like half sunshades again to stay out of the way. So the roof over your head, then this half sunshade thing, and then just like the Fisker actually, tiny mirrors on each of these. But it does actually flip out just like that over to the side. So there you go. God, these are weird big mirror things. And then you have your light here, so you can pop that open. I said open. You can pop that on or off. And then the last thing I want to talk about is these speakers, which are actually incredible. This is one of the highlights, back to the highlights of the Cybertruck. Best sound system I've ever heard in a truck. Top 5 sound systems I've ever heard in a vehicle. And I think the subwoofers are at the front. It really sounds like the thump and how they're really good subwoofers, but I think there's 2 subwoofers, both at the front, possibly in the doors, that end up sounding incredible. I want to verify that because there's a lot of other speakers in the vehicle, from one here to there to there to there, but bro, it sounds amazing in here. But let's do the back seat because this is actually a pretty comfortable back seat experience. And I've kind of in my head a little bit, I'm comparing it to other full-size trucks like the F-150 Lightning, but also like the Rivian R1T, for example, which is a bit smaller. This is a really good back seat. So again, one of my favorite tricks with this back seat row is you've got 3 across, and if you pop this up, you can just raise up those 2 back seats and get even more storage. I have these like floor mats in here, but that amount of storage very quickly is super convenient, and I like that a lot about it. Pop it back down, and then you get in, and I'm behind a 6'3" driving position here, and oh wow, it's a good amount of legroom. You have that little pocket right there. You have a larger display at the back here, so for all your HVAC controls and media. I would never use that because watching a movie down by your knee is just weird to me, but you know, you have the option if you want it. Oh. Just had to pause for a second. But I tell you. Anyway, like I said, it's a really good back seat. One more thing I couldn't figure out how to do quickly was put this little middle armrest down, but there's a little hook right here. You pull that, then you can put the middle armrest down, and you've got 2 cup holders and not really much else, but at least you have that for the middle passenger. If you want to give somebody a seat, there you go. These are comfortable seats. You know what's funny about this whole back seat thing is so many people are going to use the Cybertruck just like a large SUV. I'll talk about this more in the main channel full review, but this truck has very clear weaknesses like the other electric trucks at truck things, off-roading, towing, for example. It's not very good at that stuff over long distances, but spoiler, 90-something% of people almost never use truck stuff with their trucks. They buy F-150s and they never tow anything or haul anything, or maybe once a year they do. And so this truck is actually amazing for that. And if you made me road trip in any of these full-size electric trucks, I'd probably want to be in the back seat of this one, to be honest. This or the F-150 Lightning, but this still with the supercharger advantage, it's real. I'd rather be in this one. But hey, as long as we're talking about driving, I just want to mention the suspension on the Cybertruck is one of the most underrated things about it. It's a highlight, for sure. So it's got this air suspension with this massive amount of travel. This is right now one of the higher settings, and it looks pretty high, you can tell. But in sport mode, it lowers itself all the way down for maximum efficiency and aero, even though it's kind of a refrigerator. But the point is it can go lower and it can go even higher in its full maximum mode, which off-roading, it just looks silly and also super cool. There's like an extraction mode for if it's stuck in something, which yes, people have gotten it stuck in things, but it'll get even higher. There's like a foot total of travel with the air suspension. More impressive to me is the fact that it doesn't seem to body roll or yaw very much. So when you hit that accelerator in an F-150 Lightning, dude, the nose comes up, the whole thing rocks back and forth. This is surprisingly flat. Again, not a sports car. Don't get it twisted. It's not going to feel stable like something much lower to the ground. But I was expecting much more body roll out of this thing. Also, while we're at the front, let me just hit that front button. This is a weird button because you don't pull it, you like press in on this button, which is a little bit unusual, but that's a pretty small front trunk, not gonna lie. You can put groceries in here, it's pretty small. You can tailgate if you wanna sit here. You are covered from the rain. There's also a lot of talk about how dangerous this front trunk might be, specifically at these pinch points over in the corners. Sounds like a test for the main channel, but I think the moral of the story is don't put your fingers near the pinch points while it's closing. Just trust me on this one. But okay, last highlight of the Cybertruck. Again, first Tesla with a power opening front trunk and with a camera on the front. But again, I'll just bring it back to the looks at the end of the day. This is one of those weirdly polarizing vehicles where most of your verdict on it is probably already dictated by how it looks. Whether you love the way it looks, which trust me, as you drive down the street, you realize a lot of people love it, or if you hate the way it looks and you would never drive this stainless steel refrigerator on wheels. It's got all kinds of bug marks and stuff all over it, as you've seen. I haven't had any rusting issues or any problems with it yet. I don't really clean trucks very often, but so far so good. But it is kind of hard to ignore how many other tech things are under the hood. The 800-volt architecture makes it surprisingly the lightest electric pickup truck among the Hummer EV and the Rivian and the F-150 Lightning. It obviously has a crazy suspension, which is really, really capable. The computers inside, all this stuff working for it, but look, it's all about what you think of the aesthetics. So let me know in the comments what you think of the aesthetics. Also, shout out to Ridge for sponsoring this video and providing this Cybertruck that I've been testing for the past couple weeks until I got mine. You guys might have already seen, but I've actually joined Ridge's board. I am a chief creative partner with Ridge, and we're cooking up some pretty cool stuff that you guys are gonna see in the next couple weeks and months and years, making real products. I'm excited about it. But hey, they got the Cybertruck here and we're able to get it out here. And they actually already make a bunch of really well-made, solid products, very similar to the Cybertruck. The Ridge wallet you've seen, but also the key case. They have a pen. My personal favorite is the commuter backpack. I've been using this backpack traveling the past couple weeks, and it basically holds everything exactly that I want and nothing more. I just did an international trip. It's got this nice little AirTags holder and a passport sleeve. It's great. And right now they're doing an 11-year anniversary sale. So if you go to ridge.com/mkbhd, you can jump in there and there's a ton of stuff that's, I think, 30% off. And also if you buy during the sale, you can return things up to 365 days after you get it, no questions asked, instead of the normal 99 days, which is already super generous. But hey, Ridge is clearly feeling generous because they're letting me try their Cybertruck for a while. So I'll leave it at this. There's only 4 electric trucks out there. They all struggle with truck things, towing, hauling, long-term range, but they all are pretty nice, large SUV type vehicles. Which one's your favorite? If you could drop one in your garage right now, would it be the attention-grabbing Cybertruck, or would you float towards something like F-150 Lightning, a little more traditional, Rivian R1T, a little more off-road, a little more adventure, or are you a Hummer at heart? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.